stay bruised, cause I'm running to the money. When I flow, you already know what I'm...
Action. What is up, my people? Welcome to another episode of the Townie Sports Podcast, your favorite sports podcast in all of the land. I am one of your two hosts, Sammy, alongside the man, the myth, the millionaire, Vic. Vic, how you feeling today?
I wish I was feeling like a millionaire. That's a bold statement.
You should.
I'm happy to be here. Happy about my Bengals today and my boy Joey B.
Oh, hell yeah, man. What a crazy weekend we had. So let me just break down kind of how we're going to go about today. We're going to, obviously start off with the big news, NFL Conference Championships, everything that went down this weekend. Obviously, your huge victory lap. Get into some NFL news with a little bit of news with coaching, a little bit of Tom Brady, talk about that briefly. Then we'll do a little bit of a tiny Super Bowl preview. I think next week we'll have at least one of the two guests or one of the two hosts of the Fairweather podcast on with us, since they were champions of the podcast Fantasy Football League. So we'll have them on and we'll do like a much bigger Super Bowl preview show. And for you, get into some of your lock picks, some early picks that you got for the Super Bowl. Then we'll do the NBA All-Star starters review, do some predictions on some reserves, and then obviously cap it off with a little Townie takeaway. But first, we got to get into it, man. AFC Championship game, Bengals at Chiefs. The Bengals win 27-24. Joey B, 23 for 38, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Pat Mahomes, 26 for 39, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Vic, I got nothing else to say on this. I'm going to let you cook. I'm going to let you do your huge victory dance right now, man. What'd you think about that game?
It was an incredible comeback by the Bengals, matching a playoff record comeback from 18 down. We both know the other game that tied that. It was the Indianapolis Colts against the Patriots. But I was on the good end of this one. Honestly, not a spectacular game from Joe Burrow early on. Even late, wasn't really his best outing, but he did enough to win the game. And I feel like that's what great quarterbacks usually do, is just do enough to win the game. He had a costly pick late that I thought honestly was going to cost them, but ended up not costing them at all. And regardless, they still went to the Super Bowl. Great game from the defense here in surprising fashion, because this is not a defense where we thought was going to be dominant by any means, but we thought they were going to be bend but don't break. Joe Mixon had a great game. Felt like he made some impact plays when he needed to. In the beginning, he was totally balled up, absolutely balled up. Kurt, I still think that was a bad bet. I wouldn't have bet that at the time. But hey, here we are. You also said that the Bengals were one of the worst teams in the league. So egg on your face. Now let's look at time of possession here between the two teams. So the Bengals had control of the ball about 36 minutes, whereas Kansas City fell to 30. Not that big of a discrepancy there in terms of offensive plays ran. Bengals had 66 to the Chiefs 67. Now the big difference here is on defense and on red zone efficiency. So if we want to look at the red zone, we look how much in favor of the Chiefs this game actually was. The Chiefs hit 50% of their third downs and 60% in the red zone. So looking at, if you just watch this, like look at the numbers here, you want to think, how the hell did this team pull this off? Well, you got to go to the defensive end of the ball and look at Eli Apple, who was getting dogged in the beginning of the game for getting beat, but that secondary really stepped up and did their thing. Held Mahomes. I say held Mahomes, but he still did his thing. But he had 275 yards. You're expecting at least above 300 from Mahomes in this game. Threw 2 costly picks at the end, and they got in his head. They really got in his head, and defense wins games, right? And they have the best kicker in the league, and Evan McPherson. And as I said, what was it, 2 weeks ago or this week or last week? Special teams wins championships.
I love it. Yeah, the Bengals, like you mentioned, won the turnover battle 2-1. Not really a huge discrepancy there. But still pretty big. They got the turnovers when they needed them in crucial moments. Huge T. Higgins game. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was you who alluded to it, or I think Robbie also, that this game was probably going to be a big T. Higgins game, and it was. 6 receptions, 106 yards. The Bengals offensive line. I think that was something you and I were both a little concerned with. Like, is their offensive line going to keep up? And I thought they did pretty well. Granted, there was 16 pressures, so still a pretty good amount. But Burrow was only sacked one time, so overall pretty clean pocket. But also in that second half, Joe Burrow really did a great job of scrambling a lot out of a lot of that pressure. So I think that ended up keeping the defensive line or the Kansas City's defensive line at bay from pursuing him. So as you saw with those two huge runs that he had to get first downs on, that really changed the tide of the game. And then, as you mentioned, Tyreek Hill, 0 catches on 2 targets in the second half and overtime.
They shut them out in the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like getting into the end zone, they got
only Kelsey caught the ball.
Yeah, and the only thing is, if you look at the sacks, if you watch that game again, like it really felt like they weren't able to get to Mahomes at all until late. And then eventually, getting to him at the end in crucial spots. Mahomes was reckless at times. I think those runs in the beginning gave him a chance to, or gave him confidence for some reason that he was Lamar Jackson, which he is not. Granted, he's still a great runner, but I mean, he just got destroyed on some of those plays, and stupidly too. I feel like he could have been throwing those balls away easily, but decided to hold on to the ball and try and scramble. On the other side, Joe Burrow had a big escape from a sack, which led to points for the Bengals and ultimately led to the win. So Joey B's got big nuts, and Patrick Mahomes has tiny ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mention that because they didn't really pressure Pat Mahomes, or the Bengals didn't really pressure Pat Mahomes. All of the sacks by the Bengals were considered coverage sacks, and Mahomes' average time per play on those was 8.9 seconds before he really was getting, the bulk of that pressure before he went down. So, I mean, that secondary I don't know what happened from the first half to the second half, because it looked like the first half the Chiefs were getting whatever they wanted, but the second half it was like they just the Bengals just looked really locked in. Yeah,
it really did, especially on the defensive end. But even offensively, I felt like the play calling was a lot better in the second half. Zach Taylor's never been called a great offensive or great coach before by anybody by any stretch of the imagination. But he had a good adjustment there at the end, and the defense. I'm sorry, I can't remember the defensive coordinator's name at this time, but I mean, he really had a great game plan. Went in the second half and with adjustments, and did a great job. I mean, if we look at it, really, the game really turned around. I don't know if you remember, but there was a screen pass to Samaje Perine. I think that went for a touchdown. And that's what really felt like when this game turned around for the Bengals, and the Chiefs started, clinching their buttholes a little bit more tightly after that. So big ups to my guys, the Bengals, big ups to Joey B. I went on to go buy a Joey B jersey last night, and they're sold out. So I'll have to try and find one at the like Dick's or something, but I don't know if they'll sell it. Yeah, it's Joey B. They should have it. They should have it everywhere.
Yeah. So something interesting. So I was messing around with the metrics, the defensive metrics that you told me to kind of mess around with.
Go ahead. What's it called?
I forgot what I had said it was.
It's like the Sammy Defensive Metric System or something, SDMS.
Yeah, the SDEF. SDEF. So with my SDEF metric, which pretty much takes into consideration passing yards, rushing yards, pressures, interceptions, pass deflections, fumbles, as well as rush yards and rushing touchdowns. So when I kind of combined all those numbers and obviously made it pretty, I thought it ranked all the teams pretty well. And overall, when I looked at it, it made a little bit of sense. The Bengals defense, according to those metrics, when you account for kind of all of those numbers together, were around 15th. And you look at the Chiefs defense, on the other hand, they were around 22nd when you account for all of that. Granted, some of that assistance with that metric with the Chiefs was helped by their interceptions. But if you take 1 to 3 of those interceptions off of their tally, they're sitting in the bottom, like 4th. They're sitting in the bottom quarter as far as defense. So, I mean, I thought it played pretty well into kind of what you and I were alluding to last week, where you don't need a great defense, but you do need you need an average defense, one that's good enough to make stops when it counts, really. And I think that's what we saw from the Bengals here. They just had just a little bit more on defense. Granted, not great, but just enough.
And just one more stat here on Mahomes. So in the first half, he had 22 dropbacks with a passer rating of 149.9 and 10.5 yards per attempt. In the second half, in overtime, 24 dropbacks, a passer rating of 12.3 and 3.1 yards per attempt. I mean, that's just, if that doesn't tell you that there's something off, then I don't know what does, man. I don't know if you got his bell rung and maybe he came back with a concussion, but it did not look like the same Patrick Mahomes in the second half. And maybe that's just who he is. I mean, this is a guy who's lost in the championship game before. He's lost in big games before. I mean, granted, they have won one, but still, I mean, is he going to get the Aaron Rodgers treatment where he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, but ends up only winning one ring? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Clark, are you there? Are we able to run that little highlight video of Vic and all of his greatness from throughout the year?
Honestly, the hottest thing I had was that the Bengals would win the division, and that's a take.
The Bengals will what?
Win the division.
Cool.
And that's
I want to
that's
make sure
not
we
a
have
take
that
that
twice on air so we can record it. So when they win the
Well,
division,
again, I like Joe Burrow. I like this team, and I'm going to stick to my guns here. I still think.
All right, Vic, I'm going to let you take it away here. I want you to go through it.
But I think they can end up winning the division. So yeah, no, I love this team still. Granted, I know they blew out the Lions, but it's this is what they're supposed to do. If they're a good team, they're supposed to blow out bad teams, and that's what they did.
Are you buying?
Yeah, I buy all day. I've been buying back since preseason. And if you haven't followed me yet, still time to hop on the bandwagon before you're called a Fairweather fan. Shout out to the Fairweather podcast. But if you look at this game,
All right. So that was pretty funny. I appreciate you doing that, Sammy. That was very impressive technical work on your end, sir. But no, I mean, you're absolutely right. So when the year started, they were my dark horse pick. But then as preseason got on, and we went more and more into the regular season, I could see. I don't know that I saw. I wish I could take credit and say that I saw this team going to the Super Bowl. But once we got to the playoff, maybe, yeah, I guess I kind of did. But before that, I mean, I just saw this team as a bunch of guys, a bunch of dudes that I liked. I saw comparisons to Brady-esque that first year they won the Super Bowl in 2001. And it felt like the Pats in 2001. Now, granted, the defense isn't as dominant, but go on a similar run where the defense gets hot, special teams is good, running back's decent, and you got a guy with big balls in the backfield calling hike.
I love it. That's your victory lap, Vic. I just want to say huge congrats to you, man. You freaking called it. Everybody, all you people that were doubting Vic, calling him crazy, giving him the clown emoji, all that stuff, y'all can go suck it. That's all I got to say.
There you go.
But all right, on to the next game, a game that I thought potentially could have been an upset, and we almost had it, but they just lacked the freaking quarterback play. So the 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously the Rams were victorious in this one. Matthew Stafford, 31 for 45, 337 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And Cooper Kupp, man, just continues to dominate. 11 receptions, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then you look at Jimmy G on the other side, 16 for 30, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Vic, what did you see in this game? Were you shocked at it? Were you a little scared? How did this game play out for you?
There's one receiver I don't think you mentioned. Odell Beckham Jr., 9 receptions for 113 yards. Had a big game, probably his best game as a Ram. So big ups to my guy there. Time of possession heavily weighted towards the Los Angeles Rams here, 35-39. I'm surprised they weren't able to put the Niners away quicker. 76 total offensive plays. It looked like it took some time for Matthew Stafford to get rolling, but he certainly did. And if you look at offensive yards, it's not even close. They almost outgained. I mean, they outgained the San Francisco Rams by over 114 yards. That's a significant difference there. Then if you want to look at the penalties, San Francisco, 6 penalties for 54 yards. LA, 2 penalties for 10 yards. Now let's go down, check out our favorite stats here, our red zone stats. Now, here's the thing. On the third down efficiency, let's check third down efficiency here. 11 of 18 for the Rams, 61%, and 3 of 9 on third down for the San Francisco 49ers. And the red zone, not so great, but they got there. They got their chances. They were 2 out of 6 in the red zone, 33%. Now, you want to see that move up?
Now that you mentioned the red zone, I do want to add on to the fact that the Niners were 7th in the league in red zone defense. So that plays a little bit of a factor in there as well.
No, it absolutely does. And the defense here, you can say what you want about it. You can say that Aaron Donald is going to crush Mahomes, but I'm pretty sure the same person said that what's his name was going to do it to Mahomes. What's the guy that they just traded for from the Chargers? Ingram. I'm pretty sure that same person that said that Aaron Donald's going to crush Joe Burrow said that Melvin Ingram's going to crush Joe Burrow. So that didn't quite happen. But hey, I'm happy for the Rams. Jalen Ramsey, Odell Beckham, all these guys. Matt Stafford came from bleak situations, and now here they are on their way to a Super Bowl. This is probably one of the most likable Super Bowls in terms of individuals on the field that we've had in a long time. Say what you want about OBJ, but Matt Stafford, I mean, this poor guy had to live in Detroit for all those years. Jalen Ramsey, great player that was, in a crappy place in Jacksonville. But the real thing to look at next week, and all joking aside, is going to be this defensive line. If you look at this week, Aaron Donald in the divisional round had 8 pressures. Von Miller had 10. This round, it was Aaron Donald with 4 and Von Miller with 3. Now, my question for you, Sammy, and I know that you're really good at pulling this stuff up quick, and I'm sorry to jump this on you, but as far as the 49ers offensive round, what were their rankings this year? Were they a dominant force, or were they kind of middle of the pack?
Middle of the pack, and as far as offense is concerned.
Offensive line, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
They ran the ball very frequently, though, so I think that plays into it.
Okay, well, and that just gives me hope. Gives me hope for next week and Joey B to win his first Super Bowl. And I think it would be the first time a second-year quarterback since Brady would won it, right? Or was Ben a second year when he won it? I don't remember. But I think it would be the first time since Brady that a second-year quarterback won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It just sucks because the Niners were up 17-7 going into the fourth quarter, which was a shock to a lot of us. I think it was 17-10. But then the offense just completely went stagnant and inconsistent due to, I think there was, like you had mentioned, there's a disparity in the QB play. Matthew Stafford compared to Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, there's really no question there who you're taking 9 times out of 10. Yeah. But I thought the Niners defense did well to prevent that offense from scoring. I mean, they are one of the top teams, as I had mentioned, in red zone defense. But they do tend to give up big plays a lot. Actually, both these defense give up a lot of yards. However, they don't give up a lot of points. The Rams on one side give up a lot of rushing touchdowns, but they don't give up a lot of passing touchdowns. The Niners are vice versa. They don't give up a lot of passing touchdowns, but they kind of do give up a little bit more rushing touchdowns. But yeah, the Niners were 1-1 in the red zone, and the Rams were 2 for 6 in the red zone, as you had mentioned. And yeah, that's a big kudos to the Niners defense. Both teams, again, I don't think you mentioned this one, both teams did amazing to stop the run. You're looking at 2.5 and 2.4 yards per carry for each team. And I think that played perfectly into the Rams game plan, right? Like they're a team they're a good running team, but if you force them to throw the ball, they can also do that. Whereas the Niners, they're a lot more of a running team. They need their running game to be successful. And big kudos to Deebo Samuel. He did his thing, 98 total offensive yards. I mean, that guy's a cheat code, man. Like he's an absolute cheat code.
My thing is like, at what point does this kind of feels like the Wildcat in Miami, right? Where you did it a few games and it worked great, and then next thing you know, I mean, he had 7 carries for 26 yards. Obviously, not great there, but you would think that you would want your wide receiver to run routes, right? Not be stuck in the backfield. And when he is in the backfield, he although might create a little bit of a mismatch with the linebackers, they're still probably putting a DB on him when he goes out for a route. You're not really doing any favors to your wide receivers there. Let the guy run routes. Let him catch the ball. I mean, that's what he does. If anything, they would key in more on Kittle, so that takes Kittle away a little bit more, and you're stuck with Deebo in the backfield being a decoy basically, and you got 2 guys that George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. That's a good trio right there of wide receivers. Let them be wide receivers. Stop. I get that you need to get your best player's ball in his hands, but I mean, he had 7 carries this game, 10 carries last game. You're only shortening the guy's career. He doesn't need to be a run. He's not a running back. If you want to use it as a gadget play, that's fine. But let this guy run routes.
No, that's a great point, and I think you reminded me when you mentioned the George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. I mean, we could potentially be talking about a totally different game if two plays in particular went different. The one where Jimmy Garoppolo didn't oversail the ball to George Kittle, who was wide open over the middle, and all he had was a safety chasing him, which I'm trusting George Kittle 9 times out of 10 there to just straight up stiff arm the safety from taking him down, but you never know. Then there's the other play. Brandon Ayuk catches it over his shoulders, and I don't know what he was thinking. He did not look like he lost his balance, but then he stepped out of balance, and he completely burned the DB there. So we could potentially looking at a totally different game. But I think to your point, I think Kyle Shanahan's stuck on how Jimmy Garoppolo's skill set, and I'm pretty sure there's still an injury there. There's definitely a shoulder injury there. Did not see the pop that you saw kind of early to mid season. And he really just couldn't get the ball deep as frequently as wanted to. Not saying he has a great arm, but he has a sufficient arm to make those throws, and they just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. I mean, he's not obvious. Now, let's be honest here. If who's their backup, the rookie? What's his name? You know what I'm talking about. Whatever. What's that?
You said the backup quarterback?
Trey Lance. That's right.
Trey Lance, yeah.
If Trey Lance was any good, he would have easily beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I mean, if I'm the Niners, I'm looking at like Russell Wilson. Although probably the Seahawks won't trade within the division, but Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, even. I mean, look for somebody. Somebody other than Trey Lance. What's that?
Yeah, there's weapons there.
There is. I mean, there's quarterbacks on the market, but now there's such a void, especially with the Saints. You have the Saints. You have several teams looking for a quarterback at this time. It's tough to find one. Although they just go with Jimmy for another year. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you look at Jimmy Garoppolo in the final 2 drives of the game. He was 1 for 6 for -3 yards. Now, is that a defense thing? Is that a Jimmy thing? I think it's something somewhere in between there. Could be play calling as well. But yeah, just they were in a great situation to have a potential comeback. Then they have the ball with like a minute 20 left, and that's in most offenses. That's more than enough time to win that game. So
it's not somebody that I would be expecting to bring me. If I have Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't want to be playing from behind. You know what I mean? I want to be controlling the clock. I want to make sure that we have the ball down late or late in the game, and that's why those time of possession stats really jump out to me because the only way that the Niners were going to win this game was by controlling the clock, and I'm surprised that they stayed in it as long as they did, and kudos to them for that. But they really didn't do a good job of controlling the clock, and I think this would be a different game if they had done that.
Yeah. All right. So a little mini Super Bowl preview. Rams versus the Bengals. Obviously, everybody knows it's in LA. Do you happen to know who technically is the home team? Are the Rams the home team, even though it is their home stadium?
I'm sure the Rams are the home team. I think the Bucks were away last year, right?
Okay.
Right. But who the home colors? Who calls the coin toss? So I think it is. I think the Bucks were last year. I think it switches off every year. So
Right.
I think the Bucks weren't last year. So I think the Rams will be this year. And hey, by the way, for all these years of football, this being the 56th Super Bowl, for 54 Super Bowls, no team had ever had a Super Bowl, been in a Super Bowl at their home stadium. It's happened in the last 2 years. Pretty crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steph told me that the other day. That's why she was rooting for the Rams.
And says that the Bengals are home. So the Bengals will be the home team.
Okay. So yeah, Rams at Bengals. So it's the home stadium for the Rams in LA. So the Rams are favored by 4.5, and the over/under is 49 right now. Are you touching any of that this early?
Probably won't touch it. I mean, we got 2 weeks to go. I'm not going to look at it till probably a week out.
Do you want to wait for a lock? You want to wait for the locks?
Yeah, I'm not going to do a lock. I can't do a lock right now. But I know you mentioned that the Rams are the home team, but I mean, let's be honest. There's no home field advantage there. A and B. There's lots. Bengals fans travel well, and C. It's the Super Bowl. Most of those people in those seats are suits. Granted, the advantage of it is that the Rams get to stay in their house. They get to go to their facilities. They have their own locker room, which they're familiar with, their own facilities, which they're familiar with. Now, how much does that make a difference? I don't know. I've never been a football player, obviously, at that level. But my thing is, I would like to think that the Bengals, if they're real, professionals, they can play anywhere. So I'm rooting for the Bengals. The Bengals money line looks interesting to me, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in a week.
All right, we'll hold off on that. We'll touch on that next week. But let's get into a little bit of the NFL news, because obviously not just the crazy conference champions that have happened, the Super Bowl happening in 2 weeks. Not to mention we have Mac Jones going to the Pro Bowl. I know that's not really news. That's just something I got excited for. So a little bit of confidence boost for Mac.
How many people had to drop out of the
5? He's technically he's like the 11th quarterback. Yeah.
Jesus.
5. Yeah.
Wow. So who was it? Who dropped out? It was Mahomes, obviously, Allen, obviously, and then Lamar. He's not healthy though, right?
Burrow.
Burrow, obviously Burrow. He's in the Super Bowl, so no.
Yeah.
Burrow
and Lamar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least he's above Derek Carr. Well, did Derek Carr drop out?
No.
He's above Derek Carr?
No, I think he was chosen. Or I think Derek Carr is still doing that.
He's going.
Okay. Those were the 4 names that ended up not doing it.
That's how much I pay attention to the Pro Bowl.
I know. I don't think anybody does anymore.
Yeah.
A little bit of a confidence boost. I like that. I like that for Mac Jones, though.
Sure, whatever.
So as far as this Tom Brady retirement situation, Victor, what were your thoughts? What were your original feelings when you got this news? And do you believe it?
Did I believe it? I guess I believe it because it came from Shafty. But I don't believe. I mean, I believe that Tom Brady's petty enough that he's doing it. I forgot who told me this, but somebody said that he's doing it to get back at he's doing it to get back at Schefter for all the Deflategate shit, which I think would be hilarious.
Be awesome.
Oh my god, it'd be the greatest thing I've ever heard. Or he's just pissed he wasn't able to do his own retirement. So ESPN breaking news with Brady. But I didn't believe it when I saw it, and I still don't believe it now. I don't think he's retiring. I think he's has a spite year coming. And with what team that's going to be with, I don't know. I would assume the Bucks if they'd have him. Obviously they want him back, but if he wants to go there, or maybe he wants to end his career where he rooted for his hometown team, the 49ers. I mean, how interesting would that be? Going to the 49ers for a year, trying to bring them a Super Bowl. We can do a thing where Brady just goes to all 32 teams and brings them a Super Bowl.
Just share the wealth to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that.
Tom Brady. I got a bunch of text messages. I got a bunch of Facebook statuses that I'm having to sift through while I'm sitting there. And I'm like, look more into it. Like, Tom Brady hasn't come out and mentioned any of this. He hasn't said anything about this. He didn't openly say that he wasn't retiring, but he did make sure to tell Jason Light and Bruce Arians he hasn't made his decision yet. And not to mention that his father came out and said that there was no decision made yet. So I just wanted to be very clear, making sure that, us on our podcast, we like to do our research before we believe anything that some of these reporters say. Because, not to mention, I mentioned it to you guys, Adam Schefter was wrong before, especially about Aaron Rodgers, just a year or two ago. So, I mean...
And about the break date.
Yeah, and I don't know. And why, everybody... I don't know. My feelings on Schefter... That's a long story. But anyway, yeah. So, but I do believe where there is smoke, there is fire. So there is something there. There's potentially something there with the Brady retirement. Now, was he going to retire, but now he might not because of this, that he didn't get to say it himself? That would probably be what's going to end up happening. Unfortunately, I don't know what the Bucks can potentially do to make this team better to get it to the next level. But that's yet to be seen. And there's also rumor that Tom Brady potentially wanted to announce his retirement on that final episode of Man in the Arena. So,
Brady likes his ratings.
Yeah.
Man in the Arena season 2.
But yeah. All right, getting to the next one. The Raiders. I think this was as of yesterday or this morning. The Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator for the Patriots, for their new head coaching job. The Patriots have offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien on the horn. So it seems like Bill O'Brien is pretty much a sure thing to come to the Patriots offense. What do you think?
Wow, is that I didn't hear that. So Bill O'Brien is going to replace him?
Yeah.
That's a done deal, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty much a sure thing.
Is that a report or is that?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we just recycling these guys now? Can we get a young, fresh guy in there? I mean, come on, Bill. Yeah, I mean, Bill O'Brien is fine. I mean, I'm sure you have some great stats or something that's going to tell you how good the Pats offense was underneath him. I was bored with O'Brien and happy when he took the head coaching job with the Texans. Now, he did coach Mac Jones he came in Alabama when Mac Jones was quarterback. Mac Jones kind of showed him the system, talked him through it. Like basically, he was the one teaching O'Brien Alabama's system because obviously Nick Saban has his own system that he runs because offensive coordinators from Alabama and actually coordinators in general from Alabama can get snatched up every 2 years for a head coaching gig. So not a surprise that will be in the pitch. I was hoping it would have been Joe Judge or somebody like that, a little bit younger, maybe even an heir apparent. And that's what I thought McDaniels was going to be for Belichick. But honestly, I'm not too upset about it. I think McDaniels was kind of getting stale in the locker room. I thought his play calling became less and less. He started to have less and less of an imagination, and play calling got predictable, got boring. I get that we need to stick to the run with the young quarterback, but sometimes they got to set him loose, and I feel like he was slow to do that in multiple games. Now, we'll see with O'Brien what he wants to do with Mac. At least there's some familiarity there with him. But like I said, I would have liked a young, up-and-coming offensive guy, maybe like somebody like some wide receivers coach on some team, you know what I mean? Rather than just regular old Bill O'Brien. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good transition considering there's like a little bit of a personality difference between the two. McDaniel's a little more solid, Bill O'Brien's a little more fiery. And I think it's going to be a good transition for Mac Jones in that case because, it was perfect for McDaniel's soft little play calling for a little bit to kind of get Mac Jones a little more comfortable. Then you bring in fiery Bill O'Brien. And I think, personally, I hope and I'm feeling like Bill O'Brien's going to let him loose. So we may see a beginning of the season where Mac Jones just looks like he's taking a step back, but he's probably just going to be taking a lot more chances. That's my hope. But again, we'll see when it happens.
I mean, I would love an offensive coordinator that would actually what about? I saw somebody somewhere say Brian Hoyer, and I just laughed. I was like, God, will this guy just go away? Another name I saw was Adam Gase, and that would be an absolute devastating offensive coordinator. So I'll take O'Brien. That's obviously the safe pick, but somebody younger would be great, like a Mick Lombardi or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So speaking of offensive coordinators, so the New York Giants went and got themselves a new head coach. I think this is a tremendous hiring. They went and hired Brian Daboll, who was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and he was the offensive coordinator he was a huge part of Josh Allen's growth and the success of the Bills the last couple seasons. I thought what he implemented on that team, you saw a tremendous progression from Josh Allen. So I think that was a tremendous hiring by the Giants for once. What do you think?
No, it was an absolutely great hire, I think. And Brian Daboll, great, a pretty good offensive coordinator. He was there at Alabama, I believe, when they won the national championship with Tua at the end. I think that was a national championship year. But he has experience. He was great with the Bills those last 3 years. I mean, he really developed Josh Allen. Now, the thing is, when he comes in...
You change your tune on Josh Allen, too.
What's that? Yeah, I mean, he
made you change your tune
on Josh Allen. I still think he's really inconsistent, but, whatever. He's got a hell of a lot of talent. I like what he did in Buffalo. I like what he did with Alabama. He was with the Pats. for a little bit too. Definitely missed the bill on that one. But geez, could you? Yeah, I mean, just chuck that up. As far as offensive players that he has that he's going into basically he's going from where he had all the water in the world, right? Like he's sitting, oceanside view. Now he's going to like the swamp somewhere, like in the back Louisiana. You know what I mean? And this is just a terrible, terrible situation he's in. What does he do with Daniel Jones? Does he try and bring him around? Does he get rid of him? I mean, he does have a top pick here, but there's really no quarterback that stands out to me in this draft that would be, somebody worth going for. I mean, what do you think he does with the quarterback situation there in New York?
I think it's going to be similar. I think you're looking at and people are going to call me crazy, so that's fine. I think there's a similar skill set with Daniel Jones and Josh Allen. Now, not the same. I'm not saying he is Josh Allen, but I think you're looking at a quarterback that knows how to use his legs. You're looking at a quarterback who, in my opinion, when you watch him throw, when he does make the throws, he makes some pretty throws, man. Like he throws a beautiful spiral. I think he just lacked some of that confidence. And is this a situation where maybe the Giants have to go out and get supporting pieces, better, healthier supporting pieces around them? Because if you look at that team, that's another team that was just decimated by injuries all around. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back, literally every single player. But this might be a situation if they give Daboll enough time to develop Daniel Jones a little bit more, to get the pieces around him, not jump to this draft and get a quarterback, because I'm with you. There's not really a big star-studded quarterback draft. I think if you look at the top 5, top 7 picks, it's all kind of skill players, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, corners, wide receivers. So you're not really looking at a big quarterback that's going to change your team right away. So I think you're better off sticking with Daniel Jones, seeing what you have there, considering that first year he did show a lot to us. When he had a healthy team around him. But
yeah, and if you look at the latest mock draft on Pro Football Focus, the first quarterback that they have going here is Sam Howell out of North Carolina, 18th to the Saints, and that doesn't really make anybody move. That doesn't make the needle move. Honestly, the person that I would go with if I had to choose one of these quarterbacks coming out of this draft would probably be Matt Corral or Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Those would probably be my 2 top choices. But that's why I'm not a coach. Yep. And I take that back. Actually, the first quarterback taken is Desmond Ridder to the Broncos at 9. So I mean that's a stretch.
Yeah, that's a little high.
Can you imagine? But they need it. And a lot of teams are looking for quarterbacks here. I'm pretty sure the 2023 draft is going to be chock full of good young quarterbacks. I think that's what everybody's saying. So, do the Giants just suck again this year and come back next year and hope for, good luck in the draft, and maybe they can come out with, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young? We'll see.
We'll see. Speaking of the Broncos, they hired Nathaniel Hackett. I'm very interested in that. I'm not really too sure about this pick because I don't see him as somebody who's had tremendous success with passing attacks. You look at when he was the offensive coordinator for the Bills, they had EJ Manuel, didn't really do a great job of really boosting him up, but they had one of the top rushing attacks that year. The Jaguars from 2016 to 2018, also a running team. But look on the flip side, last 2 seasons he was with the Green Bay Packers. Now, is that him adding a running game? Because they were using A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones a lot more with him there. But you also have Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's funny, Sammy. It's such a weird. I cannot believe you brought up E.J. Manuel's name. I still remember his days at Florida. He was at Florida State, right? I remember his days at Florida State. I don't really know much about Nathaniel Hackett. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even know. I knew that he was like the offensive coordinator of the Packers the past few years, and I feel like the offensive coordinator for the Packers continues to get jobs as a head coach. I guess that's just
Rodgers, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And it happens with every good team, right? The assistants just keep getting sniped. Happened to the Pats, that year. But going back to Hackett, I don't know what he's going to do with this team. This team is, in my opinion, is one of the worst teams in the league. If you look at the roster, nobody on the roster jumps out to me. I'm surprised that they finished.
Do much with that defense. So
what's that?
He doesn't have to do much with that defense. It's actually
defense is great, but I mean, offensively, I don't know where I'd rather be. I think I'd rather have Saquon than nothing on the offensive end. I mean, he's got Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, but nobody to throw to him. I mean, this is terrible. This is like a terrible situation. But it's not like he has a good GM that's going to make him feel good and feel like he has a safe job. I feel like John Elway is going to be right up his ass immediately, expecting playoffs. So I don't know if it's a great fit, but as far as all the coach hirings, this is probably my least favorite.
Yeah, same here. This one was actually pretty interesting, and I don't know if Kyle is in the chat right now, but I'm probably going to ruin his name. Matt Eberflus signed to the Bears for their head coaching position. So he was the Indianapolis defensive coordinator for the last 3 years and actually turned Indy into a pretty star-studded and a pretty solid defense over the last 3 years. That's a team that we're used to having, a really solid offense, a good passing attack, but a team that really turned their defense around the last few years. It's going to be interesting to see if he can bring on a good offensive coordinator to develop Justin Fields even further while also keeping that core of defense solid.
I'm sorry, but I got Mike brought up a good point. Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos, and I have seen that. Damn that, yeah. Okay, that would turn things around
big time.
Oh Jesus!
But
did
Rodgers like Hackett, or did
I don't
he
think
not
he likes anybody? I'll be honest.
I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll see, Mike. But I'm with you. If he goes there, it's gonna be problems. So we're back to Eberflus, right? And this Indianapolis defense that you liked so much. Yeah, I mean, again, he did a great job turning this defense around. Because I remember like 2 years ago when they were like a joke, and everybody was saying, this is probably one of the worst defenses in the league, and he did a great job turning it around. I'll be honest, in terms of coaching, I'm not the guy to come to and be like, this guy's a great coach, right? I guess he's good. Unless I'm watching like the games constantly, I just have a casual opinion here. But I will say that what he did with that Indianapolis defense was, I think, what got them in contention for the playoffs this year. Yeah. So big ups to him, and I wish him the best of the Bears. That's a team that I think the NFL is better when they're better. So hopefully we get the good Bears back and the good NFC North back, because this year they were shit.
Yeah, I agree. So some, just to go over some of the openings that are left. There's a ton of openings in the NFL. You got the Jaguars, Vikings, Dolphins, Texans, Saints, all without head coaches right now. Obviously, there's rumor mills spinning around everywhere. I think the biggest question to me is, why doesn't Eric Bieniemy have a head coaching job? This is the second year in a row that we're asking this question. Actually, maybe third year in a row that we're asking this question. Why does the best offense in football, the coordinator for the best offense in football, not have a head coaching job?
Well, I mean, that's because he was still playing, I think. So I think now that he's no longer playing, I cannot see a world where he doesn't have a head coaching job after this year, especially with these teams that are still looking. If you're the Jaguars, why aren't you looking at Eric Bieniemy right now? Especially, he took a young quarterback in Patrick Mahomes and turned him into what he was. And let's be honest, Patrick Mahomes coming out of college wasn't the polished quarterback that supposedly Trevor Lawrence was. So, you have to be looking at him if you're the Jaguars, and if you're the Dolphins too, for that matter, trying to bring him in, get him under to his tutelage. But I feel like Trevor Lawrence is more of the Patrick Mahomes build. So the Jags have to be thinking, we got to bring this guy in. And we have to, it has to be what they're waiting for, right? Otherwise they would have hired Byron Leftwich already.
Or the Vikings. I mean, that team is star-studded with some offensive weapons.
No,
quarterback, obviously, but Kirk Cousins did have a pretty good year, as you alluded to me very early on.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what he does, right? He kind of just does his thing, but I don't understand why he hasn't been giving a shot yet. I think RJC said in the chat he still hasn't gotten calls yet, and I do think that, I mean, they just got taken out yesterday. I think there's going to be time, for him to come around. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints reached out. I think the Dolphins, and I think that the Jaguars should strongly be considering him. But knowing the Jags, there's no chance. They'll end up hiring somebody terrible, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right, so that wraps up kind of our NFL segment. Make sure you guys come on to the show next week. We're going to have a big Super Bowl preview show. We're going to go through and then even talk about even more news. So hopefully by next week, we will see Eric Bieniemy hired by then. But Vic, a topic we have been kind of avoiding because of how crazy the NFL has been this year and just how in-depth we've been really getting. But NBA All-Star starters were announced last Friday, I believe it was. I think it was Friday.
Yep.
So you have Team LeBron versus Team Durant for the second year in a row. So the Eastern Conference starters were Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, Trae Young, and DeMar DeRozan. And the Western Conference starters were LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, and Ja Morant. So what were your thoughts when you saw these announced?
Yeah, that's wild, right? The Andrew Wiggins one, that was hilarious. And I think that's more of a product of the NBA continuing to have positions. Granted, I know they have guards and they have forwards, and it can be any type of guard, any type of forward. But let's be honest. I mean, is Andrew Wiggins really a forward? There's no chance he makes it under the guards, right? Yeah. I think it's more a product of that, and there's 15 more people more deserving. If Andrew Wiggins gets taken as it doesn't get taken as a starter, I don't even know if he makes the All-Star game.
Right.
I was shocked. Obviously sucks that Kevin Durant can't be in it, but that leaves an opportunity for somebody else, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But KD, good for him making it. Nobody else really surprised me. Maybe DeRozan and Trae Young are still having good years too. Yeah, I mean, nobody really stands out to me as like, how, other than Wiggins, how did this guy get the start? Trae Young has been hot lately, so that's the only thing I will say of Trae Young. Making it. I know a lot of people are shitting on him, but he's come on really hot lately, so that could be why he made it. But no surprises for me. How about you?
No, Justin Wiggins. I thought everybody was good. I mean, I was actually kind of confused why Devin Booker wasn't a starter, but I think you answered my question for me with the Andrew Wiggins as a forward. So I guess that kind of makes sense why Devin Booker wasn't named a starter, considering
it still doesn't make sense.
He's having a tremendous year, but
it still doesn't make sense. He should have been a starter. I don't know what happened. I heard rumors that K-pop could have been to blame. That a bunch of K-pop people got together and wanted to get, or a K-pop guy tweeted out, "Let's hire Andrew Wiggins, or let's get Andrew Wiggins in the All-Star game." And you know what happens when you go against K-pop or you go for K-pop. That shit gets you votes, gets you whatever you need.
That's awesome. So yeah, as you mentioned, Kevin Durant currently in doubt, so more than likely going to get replaced. So let's go through some potential reserve predictions. I mean, I think we pretty much know who some of the reserves would be. So let's start with the East. Like, who are your potential reserves? Obviously, I feel like I know who the first one on your list is going to be.
Well, my reserve is actually the first one on my list is not actually reserve, Sammy, because he is going to be made a starter, and that's a foregone conclusion pretty much. It's Jason Tatum. He's going to be taking over for Kevin Durant as an All-Star starter. Makes sense. So yeah, those are my starters there, those are my starters with Tatum there. So now in terms of backcourt, who are my backcourt guys? I like Fred VanVleet and of course Zach LaVine. Those guys are definitely playing, no doubt. In terms of backcourt or front court, I mean, I want to go with. Now, because Jason Tatum's going to have to replace somebody, so they're going to have to call somebody in, right?
Yeah.
Or do they go with the next vote?
I think they would just replace him, right?
Okay. So for my front court, obviously Jimmy Butler, Jerry Allen's having a great year. I'll tell you what, if Evan Mobley didn't get hurt, I wouldn't be surprised if he made this list. But
they usually don't take rookies.
I know, but dude, he's transcendent.
I know.
He's KG light. Dude, he's like
They didn't
KG,
even
man.
take,
Seriously.
they didn't take Luka his first year either. So
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's true. Jimmy Butler, Jerry Allen, and I'll throw in Chris Middleton
okay.
for my front court.
Do you
Somebody
like
else.
my Miles Bridges call? I think he's having a pretty good year.
If you look at the vote, I wish I could find that tweet. I think I sent it to you guys.
Yeah.
There's a tweet that was had like the all-star voting and where the media ranked people. Where is this at? I gotta find this. And Miles was like 4th in media voting, and I was just thinking to myself, how the fuck is this guy 4th in media voting? I mean, yeah, he's having a good year, but I mean, Jason Tatum was leading the league in points scored for like half the season until he got sick with COVID. And granted, I know and it's all perception, right? The team has been a huge disappointment this year. I get that, but he's still having a pretty good year, and his shooting's down, and he isn't getting to the free throw line. He had 36 last game without going to the free throw line once. This guy does not get calls ever. So I put some respect on Jason Tatum's name. And Jaylen Brown, another one who should be considered for this. And I know he's been out injured for a while, but if he was fully healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if he was voted as an all-star starter. And I cannot find that tweet anywhere. It's going to piss me off.
All right, getting to the West. Who do you have some of your predictions for the West? Obviously, Devin Booker is going to be number 1, but other than that,
yeah, Devin Booker, Luka, number 2, obviously, Chris Paul possibly could make it, but for my front court, I would probably say, well, Donovan Mitchell is the front court. He's backcourt, right? So I would say Donovan Mitchell. So that's how many guards do I have? So I have Chris Paul, Luka, Donovan Mitchell, and
Devin Booker. That's 4.
Devin Booker. Okay. And then for my front court, I got Draymond Green, Karl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Davis.
Okay. Yeah, I put Karl Anthony Towns as well. I thought he probably should have started over Andrew Wiggins in the front court, but whatever. You could even consider Brandon Ingram there. Brandon Ingram's having a pretty good season as well. And kind of my dark horse, who I just like him, and I think you do too. I think we're both big fans, but Anthony Edwards, I just like him. I think he's fun.
I love Anthony Edwards. Yeah, no, he is having a good year too. It's just I don't know if I could put him over any of those other guys in the front court. And Anthony Edwards is he's probably one of the most funniest players in the league. He's hilarious. He's confident. He's cocky. I'd love to have him on my team. And what a talented second-year player he has been. But I can't put him over any of these guys.
No, I know. It's just a fun, player that I would have loved to see there.
I'm disappointed in myself. I haven't watched as much basketball as I would have liked to this year, so I may be a little bit ignorant. I may be you know what? I think I did forget. I forgot Paul George.
Yeah, that's one of the snubs. That's a potential snub.
Yeah, I would put Paul George in there over Donovan Mitchell.
Okay.
Donovan Mitchell at least has a second All-Star there. Paul George is doing it by himself.
Yeah.
So.
All right, yeah, and I believe the reserves are going to be announced Wednesday, I believe. So we'll know
tomorrow. I think it's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Or is it tomorrow on NBA on TNT?
Yeah, it's going to be on TNT right before I think there's a game Wednesday, so they'll probably do it right before the game. All right, anything you want to wrap up about the NBA All-Star game, Vic?
I really want to watch more basketball when football's over.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I really hope baseball comes back.
Yeah, same.
I need more hot stove talk.
Me too, man. It's been boring this offseason, no hot stove stuff.
I know. All right, I got a takeaway, and I might put some people to sleep.
Before we get to your takeaway.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Before we get to your takeaway, can I talk about the United States men's national team this weekend?
Good segue.
Okay. Good segue. What an absolute disappointment, I think. You didn't watch the game at all, did you?
I didn't.
You're such a bad American. So I, unlike you, and probably everybody in this chat, everybody watching us, everybody who's going to watch us, watched the United States men's national team over Kansas City versus the Bengals. And I went back and forth, but I was really focusing on the USMNT. They had a terrible, terrible game, terrible tactics by a terrible coach. And honestly, the only thing holding this team back is his awful tactics, his awful lineups. I mean, this man, I know it would be insane to fire your head coach who's second in standings in the World Cup qualifiers and, so close to the World Cup, only 4 months away, I believe, 4 or 5 months away. He's awful. There's no way. If you have whatever your expectations are for this USMNT to even make the World Cup final, I would be surprised if we made it out of the group. I'd be surprised if we finished third in our group, and that's wasted talent. I wasn't expecting much from this young team anyway. I think our average age is like 24 years old, but I was at least expecting maybe a second place group finish and an exit in the knockouts. That's not, I mean, I can't even fathom that at this point, but I will let you get to your takeaway. I just wanted to say that about Greg Berhalter. Thank you.
Yeah, no, perfect. No, it was a great segue because I'm also kind of slide right into some quick soccer talk. I know you're talking about the USMNT and the qualifiers, but what a lot of people don't know, what we have going on the other side of the Atlantic is the African Cup of Nations. And I just want to say that the African Cup of Nations gets absolutely no respect. And fair point why it doesn't. But I think there's something to be said about this cup. For many in Africa, this is considered the World Cup of Africa. All these individual players, fans, citizens of all these countries live and die by soccer, and they support these teams like no other. All of them know that their chances to win the World Cup as an African nation are very, very slim. So this is their World Cup. Not to mention, it's widely known that many European nations poach players early in their lives from Africa to play for either Europe or any of the Americas. Cough, France World Cup 2018, the Belgian national team, and the Germany World Cup team from 2014 was very full of African talent, just to name a few. No disrespect, but these African nations simply do not have the funds or the training camps to compete with Europe and the Americas. So again, this is their title. This is their mecca, and every single iteration of this African Cup is absolutely tremendous. There's upsets galore. There's everything. There's action. So a little background. The African Cup is going on for about 65 years, so it's a pretty old cup. Egypt holds the most African titles with 7, then followed by Cameroon with 5 and Ghana with 4. So every year the tournament turns out some of the best players in the world, all of which play in the major leagues in the world and all come out and play at their best. So just to mention a few right off the top of my head, I was like, let me think of 5 players. And it was like really quick. So Mo Salah, he plays for Egypt and Liverpool. Ashraf Hakimi plays for Morocco and PSG. Sadio Mane, Senegal and Liverpool. Riyad Mahrez, Algeria and Manchester City. Kelechi Iheanacho, Nigeria and Leicester City. So, I mean, those are just 5, right? You can keep going. Naby Keita plays for Guinea and Liverpool. So, yeah, for these players, and also on top of these players coming and showing out and representing their country and really adding on to their legacy, it's also big for these other players because this is kind of their chance to get out of Africa or to make it to a big contract for a big team. So really every team comes out really defensive. Every team is in peak physical condition, and no matter if you're the favorite or not, you better come to play or you're going to get upset. And that's kind of what I'm here to talk about, because early on the favorites to win were the usual suspects: Algeria, Cameroon, Senegal, Egypt, Morocco, Ghana. But fate had other plans, man. The reigning champs, Algeria, were knocked out in the group stage. 3 winless matches. 1 was a draw, which was very early against Equatorial Guinea, I believe it was. And it was crazy to see the team that drew with Algeria, just the players crying and just super excited that, the reigning champs, the favorite, the favorites to win the title, where they took them down. Nigeria shook things up, and they just looked like a team that was going to absolutely demolish everybody. They beat Egypt early in the group stages, and they were the top of their group. Ghana was knocked out pretty early in the group stages after losses to both Morocco and Comoros. Then you get to the knockout stages. So you're in the round of 16 here. Tunisia shocked everyone after barely. So Tunisia barely made the knockout stage. And then they ended up taking down Nigeria, who looked like the team that was going to plow through everybody. Nigeria didn't lose a single game in the group stages. Then they lose 1-0 to Tunisia, which was absolutely insane. I gave a tip to a buddy to take Nigeria against Tunisia, and he lost money. I felt bad. But then You look at Equatorial Guinea on the other side. They continue their Cinderella story after they downed the group winner Mali. So Mali was another team looking like they were going to go through and make it to the finals, but fate had had other choices for them. Equatorial Guinea comes and takes them down. Then we get to the quarterfinals. You got a team, Burkina Faso, barely made the knockout stages, just kept fighting and winning, and then they ended up upsetting Tunisia. So Tunisia upset Nigeria, and Burkina Faso comes out and upsets Tunisia. So Burkina Faso is now in the Final Four, which nobody even pictured them being close to the Final Four. And then I'm a little biased, but I based on a lot of what I was reading statistics-wise, the biggest game of the weekend was, of course, the North African Giants, Egypt playing Morocco. Obviously, the game went to double overtime. Egypt ended up winning on a tremendous Mo Salah assist. They ended up winning 2-1. So to conclude, in the semifinals, we have Burkina Faso facing Senegal and the host Cameroon playing Egypt. Those games are Wednesday and Thursday, respectively. So big things happening in Africa. So I just wanted to say to all my soccer fans, new, old, never watched soccer, I think if you want to get into soccer, the African Cup is really fun to watch. You just see the excitement in all these players, but just give the African Cup some respect. This is the pinnacle, and this is like the mecca for these African nations, and this is the biggest deal for them. So just wanted to shout them out.
I want to know how many of our listeners can point to Burkina Faso on a map. And to add something you say, some of the greatest players and the most fun players ever to play, George Weah, Didier Drogba, that whole Ivory Coast team, that Ghana team back in 2010. I'm familiar with Algeria only because of that amazing goal by Landon Donovan in 2010 against them to send the U.S. through. Doesn't Algeria fill their team with like all European players that have like some tie to them? I feel like they cheat somehow, right? Yeah. Like that was like the big thing. Yeah. So, screw them. But no, that's great, man. I'm loving that you're in the Africa Cup. I'll be honest, it's not something I watch at all. And if you would have told me, that none of these African teams really make it far in the World Cup, I would have thought you were crazy. Just from that Ivory Coast team alone, I mean, that team was stacked back then. I'm surprised they never made it. I could have sworn they were a third place finish at one point at one World Cup, but you lose track of time sometimes when these World Cups come around, where you don't realize they only come around every 4 years.
The farthest an African nation has ever made is a quarterfinal.
Yeah, who was it? Do you know by chance?
It's Morocco and I believe Ghana.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Because Ghana had that good team that 2010 year, I believe. I'm not sure if they made it through, but
Samuel Eto'o with Cameroon also.
Samuel Eto'o, yeah, he was freaking. Yeah. I mean, these strikers, man, they were incredible. That 2010 team was sick though. I mean, but they were. I think they were in a Brazil-Portugal group, and that's why they got knocked out so early. Yeah. But I'm talking about Ivory Coast. I just love that team so much. All right. But yeah, I'll let you wrap it up, man. Great show. I love the World Cup. I can't wait for the summer. I'm sure you and I are going to be covering it heavily.
Super stoked. It's in the fall, by the way.
This fall. Right. What was it? And September, right?
Yeah, it's in Qatar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Before we close it out, though, Vic,
we
forgot to mention something huge, something massive.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Big Papi's Hall of Fame enshrinement. How did that make you feel?
Like a proud parent. I was so happy for him, man. I was really bummed that Manny didn't make it.
I know.
Or that Manny hasn't made it yet. But he will, right? He should. I'm happy for David Ortiz. He absolutely should deserve to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's the greatest DH of all time, greatest professional hitter of all time. I was shocked when I went back and I looked to see if he had how many MVPs he'd won, and he hadn't won any. It was shocking. I could have sworn he won one in there, but constantly finishing in the top 10 in MVP voting as a DH, and just what he meant to the city of Boston, not what he meant and what he meant to baseball. Really, he was an ambassador for Boston. He was an ambassador for the Dominican Republic. He's just one of those good people that deserved what he got and worked hard for it and ended up getting it. So big ups to Big Papi. You deserve it, man. And congratulations on being inducted into the Hall.
Couldn't have said any better. I almost started tearing up again. Like I watched that video when he got the call. I started
Oh man,
tearing
that's
up.
great.
And that
This
was
is our fucking city.
it's a
And
great.
nobody's gonna dictate our freedom.
But with that, on that note, thank you everybody for tuning into Townie Sports. We love you and thank you for choosing us for your listening pleasure on all things sports. This show would not be possible without you guys. So thanks again for listening every single Monday. Please remember to like the video and subscribe. Like the video and subscribe. Like the video and subscribe. Just your 2 fingers. That's all you got to do. Like, subscribe. That's it. Every one of your views, likes, and subscriptions helps us with the YouTube algorithm to reach other potential viewers and grow our channel to new and greater heights so we can have some more awesome prizes, giveaways. We can give you much more content. So remember, we are live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, like, subscribe, tell your uncle, tell your mom, tell your grandfather, tell your great-grandmother. Tell all them. Tell the people in the old folks' home. They probably like sports. They can turn it on in the background. They can just listen to it and be like, that guy was crazy. I don't know. I don't know why I did an Italian accent there. But yeah. Also, welcome to our newest subscribers to the House of Fandom. We are now at 349 subscribers and growing daily. Help spread the word that the House of Fandom YouTube channel is the home to sports fandom, pop culture, movies, and so much more. You can find all of our shows and previously aired shows right there. Don't forget to check out our Instagram page at Townie_sports and our TikTok page at Townie Sports Pod. All one word. We'll give you all updates on the shows, all the Townie takeaways, all of Crazy Vic's takeaways, or actually genius takeaways, should I mention.
Crazy
And
Vic, I feel
additional
like one of
sports
those
coverage
men.
and amazing hot takes by Vic and myself. The House of Fandom show returns this week with a review of episodes 1 through 5 of the HBO Max DC show Peacemaker with John Cena. Could you see him? I don't think you could see him in the show, right?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
You
Incredible show, though. Have you watched it yet?
Good show, but you probably just couldn't see him. You just saw everybody else, right?
I saw everybody else and the funny quips and the good relatable characters. Give me more vigilante. I want all the vigilante. I want a vigilante spinoff.
They also talk and show first look footage of the Halo show based on the record-breaking video game. That should be interesting. So be sure to check them out this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that being said, I'm your host, Sammy, alongside the great Genius Vic, and we are Townie Sports. See you next week.
See ya.